I mean, I love cold email. And the funny thing is, cold email gets such a bad rap, but every big software company that you can think of does it. Like Drift is like a really well-known, SaaS company in the US. Well, they have like teams of employees whose job it is to send cold emails. So it's like for us as solopreneurs to think like, oh, cold pitching is gross and I'm not going to do it and blah, blah, blah. Like it's really very silly.
Hello and welcome to the Working From Home podcast with your host, me, Nelson Jordan. Today, I'm thrilled to be interviewing Dayana Mayfield, who is a conversion and SaaS copywriter. She's been freelancing for 5 years now and is very experienced. And I'm so excited to have her on because she's going to teach us how to market ourselves as a freelancer. Dayana, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Nelson. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem at all. I am genuinely very excited because I think you're going to have some tips that I can apply myself. So
absolutely, yes.
Anytime I can kind of kill two birds with one stone is fantastic. Would you mind starting us off with kind of a brief introduction to yourself, please?
Yeah, so I am, as you said, a SaaS copywriter and also a content marketer. And I started my business in 2015 when my husband and I decided that he was going to go back to school. So I like to say I had to provide like a man, so I had to learn to charge like a man, because I think a lot of female service providers and freelancers tend to undercharge. I think women tend to do that more than men do. And because I became my family's, breadwinner, I was like, all right, I got to figure this out and get to, that 6-figure level, like as soon as I can. So I just kind of kept looking for like ways to make my service more valuable and also ways to work with more profitable companies that could, afford the rates that I wanted to charge for my services.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure lots of people know, but there might be others that don't. What's meant by SaaS?
So, right, good point, because I'm so used to saying it, but in normal life, if I say that at like a cafe or something, people are like, what? SaaS is software as a service. And it basically refers to, instead of purchasing, back in the day, you would buy, Microsoft Word on a CD. It would be a one-time fee of say like $100 for, Microsoft Office suite. And that was it. You paid it, you're done. Software as a service it's like an ongoing subscription. So you pay it typically monthly or annually. And a lot of freelancers are already using SaaS products such as Calendly or QuickBooks or Zoom. Those are all really well-known SaaS products.
Fantastic. Super clear. And as you say, like lots of freelancers either know about SaaS or know about it as soon as you say the products that they use, because they're like, yep, tick, tick, tick. I use all of those.
Yeah, it's basically like the cool new way to say software. And some people say that because now everything is SaaS. It's not really the transition anymore. Now it's like everything is SaaS. Some people say, okay, we should just go back to saying software instead of SaaS. But now it's stuck. So we're just stuck with it.
Yeah, there was that kind of transition a few years ago when everything started coming out. But then as more and more companies have just changed their pricing models and all their business models entirely to just have this subscription, it does seem more commonplace. So for within copywriting, what is your kind of experience? Were you doing anything before this?
So the funny thing about me is that I had never had like a real job, quote unquote, real job. So I've always loved writing. Ever since I was a kid, I've always kind of like pursued writing, taken creative writing classes, written poems and novels in my spare time and always loved it. But I didn't connect that to like having a career, So like I was just doing odd jobs, like, graduated college in 2009 in the recession. So there was like two factors working against me. There was the recession and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I kind of just did odd stuff like working as a secretary or being a caregiver, a house cleaner. And neither of my parents are like white collar workers. So like my dad's a motorcycle salesman and my mom was always a house cleaner. So I didn't know like what is a career, like even, you know, the idea of like you could work in PR or marketing or like be an accountant. Like I had no access to like even like understanding like what is a career and how do you do that. Like I have a lot of people that like in my family that work retail or, you know, like that are not like educated. So yeah, after college, I was like, I just had no idea of how to like use my skills in like a way that would make money. So I did not connect the fact that you could make money as a writer. And I think that's really common. I think a lot of people still see creative skills and talents as something that's like a long shot. It's like, okay, unless you're like a famous author or an actor or an artist, you're not going to make a living as a creative. And, you know, now having 5 years of experience within marketing, I know that that's like so not true. And it makes me sad to think of all the kids out there who are creative and their parents are still telling them like, oh, you can't make money this way, you know, because now we know like a creative talent is like, you know, something you can make a great income from. So I got off on a tangent. What was the original question?
No, that wasn't a tangent at all. Like originally I asked kind of how you got your start, and that's exactly how you got your start.
I'm back to it. Okay. So basically when I was 27, I had an 18-month-old baby. At that point, my husband wasn't yet ready to go back to school. But I felt like, okay, I have an 18-month-old daughter. I want to show her that like she can provide for herself because like my husband's an awesome guy. He's super nice. But, you know, my mom was in an abusive relationship for 6 years. So I know that not every woman always gets that lucky. And sometimes, you know, you pick the wrong guy or whatever. It's just a very antiquated thing to think like, you know, like women can't like, you know, provide for themselves. But I'm like, well, here I am in that situation. And I thought if my husband dies, I would have to deal with grieving him and trying to figure out how to like care for my kid, you know? So it's like when I was younger, my early 20s, I'm like, I didn't care. I just, you know, I'll clean houses or be a secretary or whatever. But after I became a mom, I'm like, I got to figure out how to make, you know, more than $12 an hour. Like I got to figure that out because if anything ever happens, I'm not going to be able to like, you know, buy a house and, you know what I mean? Like provide like a good life for my kid. So I'm like, all right, I'm finally going to figure this out. Like I'm good at writing. There's gotta be a way to make money writing. So I got a copy editing certificate because at that point I still didn't have enough confidence to think like I can make money from writing. So at that point I was like, let me start with editing. For some reason, I thought that was going to be easier, which is so not true because it's still, you have to build a business out of it. Yeah. So I got a copy editing certificate from UC San Diego Extension. It's like their online program. And then I found out that I suck at copy editing because I'm not like meticulous enough, you know, like I don't want to, you know, make everything exactly perfect because we all think we know where the period and the comma and the quotation marks go. But if you're really a copy editor and you get things ready for publication, you realize it is way more complicated than you could ever imagine. And it's not that fun. So then I finally got the confidence to like, all right, let me try this whole copywriting thing. So I got on UpWork and just started writing, you know, blogs and emails on UpWork. And my starting rate on UpWork was $14 an hour. And within 2 years, I bumped that up to $150 an hour and then got off UpWork completely and started using different strategies to grow my business off of their platform so that I wasn't reliant on UpWork, you know, for gigs.
And I think UpWork gets a lot of flack from people, especially like people in our industry who have maybe, I suppose, moved on from it, because we all remember like the horror stories that we experienced. And like for me personally, I was my first ever client on UpWork for copywriting. I think fired me after 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I looking back on it, I don't think I was at fault at all. I was pretty annoyed. It didn't ruin my day or anything, but I mean, UpWork seems to be really, really good for people kind of getting their start. If you're kind of willing to put in the hours and do kind of pitches that don't go anywhere, and just to get some kind of portfolio pieces under your belt, some samples and things, the people that you bring on afterwards as clients don't need to know that you weren't paid very well for the samples. It's really a question of, can you make a decent living, or the living that you want? And from UpWork, and I think in countries like ours, where the cost of living is a bit higher, I think it's really tough to do. I think you can be in other places in the world and make a pretty good living off UpWork.
Yeah, I think that because so many freelancers, especially skilled freelancers, have a bad taste in their mouth with it and don't want to use it, there is an opportunity to be one of the people that's like, hey, I'm going to be on UpWork and be one of the top talents, and I'm going to be really selective about who I work with, and I'm going to capitalize on the fact that all these other freelancers don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did for a while. So even after I had pretty great portfolio samples, I still just left my profile up there, and I would just only accept invitations. So I wouldn't be like, crawling for gigs and applying for things anymore. I just accepted invitations. And then, I would just be selective. Like, I would check out the company. How many employees do they have on LinkedIn? Okay, if they have like 9 or more employees, then they're a fairly established company. So they're going to have a bit more, a bit higher budget. So I think there is an opportunity to like work within UpWork even for quite a while. But where it got to the point for me where I was like done with it was, it just didn't feel like, okay, what am I getting out of this? Like, what am I really growing? Because initially you're benefiting from the fact that you don't have to have an external presence. You don't have to have a presence on social media or on your website. You're benefiting from it because you can make money without that. But then you hit a point where you're like, well, I want to, kind of strengthen my position as a business owner, make my business more future-proof. And then you've got to start doing the work of making a great website, working hard on LinkedIn and all that good stuff.
Exactly. Like when you're on UpWork, you're really capitalizing on the fact that they've already got a large number of potential clients on there who are searching. You don't have to go out and do all of these fancy things like websites, social media profiles, blogging, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like it's ready made. All you've got to do is create a profile. You can be up and running in half an hour, potentially winning your first client within 45 minutes. And that's an attractive proposition for sure.
Yeah. And get that income coming in, because you've got to have some income to support the time it takes to do your website and post on, social media, networks. It's like, you also want to have kind of like your base level income coming in. So while you're doing all that stuff, you're not like freaking out about money.
For sure. So when you kind of made the decision to move away from UpWork, was it for something in particular? Was it, I've got this in my head that I want to niche down and become this type of copywriter, or was it just I know I need to move away, I'll figure it out later?
At that point, I was already kind of like niche down within SaaS copywriting. And I had my website already like set up. So I got my website set up within like the first few months of working on UpWork, but I wasn't working on like building up any traffic to it. So the decision at that point was just to kind of push it a little farther and do something that was going to set me up for like the long term. Because like when you create a personal brand as a freelancer, you have a foundation to launch other things. Like, now I have my course on cold emailing. I'm creating another course right now on digital PR. So it's like I have more of an audience and something like a launch pad that I can sell things from. And so at that point, I didn't know like if I was going to make courses or what kind of courses I was going to make, but I knew like I wanted to set myself up for like other like revenue streams, or I thought, oh, maybe I could do like a YouTube channel with like business and marketing advice, like, which I ultimately have not, taken that on. I don't know if I will, but I knew I wanted to like create that kind of launch pad personal brand to like be doing more. So yeah, I was still like, I had like SaaS copywriter as my like headline in UpWork, which helped because then, I was already kind of niched down. So I have been niched down for quite a while. And I like, highly, highly recommend that. Like I've had the SaaS niche for like 4 years. I was calling it tech copywriter for a while. And then I switched over to like SaaS copywriter as that phrase became more popular. But yeah, it's just so helpful. It's like, not only does it help you get more clients, but it helps you qualify your clients. Like I said, with the employee headcount, how many employees do they have? Or, what kind of like SaaS product is it? Because like I know the market fairly well. Like, is it something that's just 5% better than something popular, or is this something really special? Like if I was to be serving all these different niches, it would be so much harder for me to know what kind of companies I want to select, because I want to be picky, right? I want to find the best clients. So it'd be hard for me to be picky, and it would be hard for me to help them because I wouldn't be able to say like, well, here's what's working, you know what I mean, for other companies. Like it would just be, I can't even imagine how hard it would be. I don't know how people would like work without a niche. I honestly have no idea.
So I can probably speak to this because I take the complete opposite approach to you.
Okay.
The thing to realize for anybody listening is that Dayana is further on in the copywriting journey than I am. So that's kind of important to understand, because it may be that I eventually do change my mind and kind of start to niche. So to niche or not to niche is this kind of big discussion for freelancers in general, not just copywriters. It happens as well with things like designers, like social media as well. But I personally don't niche. And it's because I do a service that's called full funnel copywriting. So what I do is, instead of working in a particular industry, I work with certain frameworks, and I focus on like how to get somebody from never having heard of you all the way through to a customer. And I provide all of those pieces. So it might be the Facebook or social ads to start with. It might be the creation of an opt-in page for a lead magnet, and the lead magnet itself, then kind of a sales page and follow-up emails. So for me, what I like doing is understanding the process and applying that process to different industries. It's not necessarily that I think it works better than niching. It's, from a personal level, it stops me getting bored. Like I actively enjoy the variety that comes with doing research. But yeah, I can definitely see that if I had to choose and had to do it in a make a decision just basically just on the financials, I can definitely see the benefits of niching for sure, because I wouldn't necessarily have to do the volume of research that I do for every single project. I could just focus on the writing, and gradually I'm building up these this kind of knowledge in the back of my head, or former research and things like that. So I get it for sure. And I think it's just a personal decision. And I think it's something that everybody should just experiment with anyway, trying different things, trying out niches. I think sometimes we get into this mistake, like this mindset mistake of thinking like, if I do something, it has to be forever. If I make this decision, like, oh, hey, I'm a SaaS copywriter now, like I'm going to have to be a SaaS copywriter forever. That's just not the case.
Right. And the funny thing about SaaS is it's like the niche that isn't a niche because it's across every business vertical. So having my niche does not remove the research part because I could be doing a SaaS within, marketing. And then the next one is a product for, project managers. And then the next one is within like customer research for manufacturing. Like it can be all across the board. But I do think that's true for certain ones. Like if you work for like all wellness coaches, like of course you'll have to kind of understand their different like modality for like healing or whatever, but like you'll get to a point where you'll like know a lot about that industry. So that could reduce research for certain ones. But one more thing I want to say about niching that's really important to understand is the difference between horizontal niching and vertical niching, because you could possibly say that funnel copy is sort of like a horizontal niche. It's like a broad one because it pulls in a lot of different things. But I think that freelancers kind of need to consider like their personality and what sort of selling they want to do. Because let's say your horizontal niche is website copy or even like website, development. Like you're going to need to sell that as like a project base. And then once one customer is done with that big website project, they might just need, a couple hours a month of like tweaking and optimization, but they're not going to need this like $5,000 project again for like 2 more years. So you're going to be selling yourself all the time. You got to be selling these big projects. The benefit of that though, is it gives you like expertise in something. So like Tarzan K is a really good example of a horizontal niche because she specified within email copywriting and now she has a course on, email marketing. So it's like, it gave her like a jumping ground for like a great, course that her potential clients could buy, former clients, other copywriters who were spying on her. Whereas if she was just like copy for coaches, that wouldn't have been as good of a jumping ground for a course, right? But then I do something that a lot of people don't want to do and don't like, where I write a lot of different copy for SaaS companies. So the way that I get clients is typically a website or like content marketing, like an ebook and like blog post funnel, right? But once I'm already like working with that client, if I like them, I'll do a lot of different copy for them. So like I might write their Facebook ads, their search ads, their PPC landing pages. Then like, I've written advertorials for like a magazine, like as long as it's within my, it's still with the same client. So I know their business and I know the format, it doesn't really matter to me. And the benefit of that is I don't have to be selling like all the time. And the clients actually really like it too, because they're like, well, I know you do good work. I know you can pivot within this format. And I know my company. So it's like within the cool kind of like freelance advice space, like nobody would ever tell you to do that. Like write any type of thing. But it's like, it makes sense. Like it's a smart way to do business. Like that's how, a lot of people work with their virtual assistants. Like, they'll do your website and then they'll manage your email marketing. And it's like, it makes sense. So anyways, just anybody listening, if you're like confused on the niching thing, think about the vertical versus the horizontal, what your clients want, and then also how you want to be selling your services and how you want to set yourself up for the future.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm wholly with you there. And the way you described it is exactly what I do. So I think people don't understand about freelancers in general that there are 2 very separate areas. There is doing the job and there's everything that surrounds the job. So when I say doing the job in both of our cases, that's actually the copywriting and everything that's involved in that. So that's like the research, that's the production of the copy, that's the editing, that's the testing, that's the optimizing. Then the kind of almost bigger part of it is how you run your business. And that's like how you win clients, how much revenue you're able to get per client, how many cold pitches you're doing, and everything that goes along with that. Now, you can be a really great copywriter and still make no money. If you don't know how to do everything around the business, which is why Dayana and I are spending so much time kind of harking on about this, because it's super, super important. So I always found that, because I've been operating a few different businesses, as well as like my freelance business at like a small marketing agency in the past. I also own a rope import business into France and Scandinavia for the marine industry. And well, there you go. Yeah, just drop that in. And one of the things that we do in that business, as well as what I try and do in my copywriting, is once we find a client who accepts a quotation for, say, some sort of rope for their yacht, then we try and sell them other things, because we've already got that customer. We've already gone through all the time and the effort and the energy to find them, to convince them to buy from us, to trust us, and they're there and they need other things. So if we can also provide those other things, why wouldn't we do the same thing? I think sometimes with copywriters, this desire to be seen as a specialist stops us from taking easy money-making opportunities and kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, because you don't necessarily want to say, oh yeah, I can do anything for you in terms of copy, but it's very much down to how you position that. If you position it like something that's incredibly high value, so, I know your business inside out, I've done all this research, my way of working, you know that you're going to get results, or I'm going to stay with you until I create the copy that gets you the results. If you frame it like that way, rather than this kind of perception of like jack of all trades, master of none, that's incredibly high value. But I feel like I hear from a lot of people that they're just like only do website pages, for example, or they only do, like, they specialize in Facebook ads in terms of just writing the copy for those. And I kind of think, yeah, okay, I get it, but are you leaving money on the table there?
Right. And there's like what's on the stage, and then there's like what's behind the scenes. Because you might have like website copy on the stage, because I don't want to confuse people. And I don't do, ad copy very often. So I'm not going to put that on my site. I have like 2 main services on my site, and then the rest is like behind the scenes. So, just remember there's a difference between what you go after and what you'll also take in, because you do want to have clarity and, concision with what you're going after, and then you can always have boundaries. Like, I don't do like social media posts, I don't like run social media accounts, like, cause I just don't feel like that's like, something I'm good at. And I know there's so much more involved with like, growing the accounts and the engagement and all that stuff. So I just don't want to get involved in that at all. You know what I mean? So you can still have like lines in the sand where you're like, yeah, I'm not going to touch that. But then also be open to taking on fun projects. Like, one thing I love writing is video scripts. Like those 60-second explainer videos are really popular and important in the SaaS world.
Sure.
And so when a client asks me to do one of those, I'm like, oh yeah, like those are super fun.
Yeah, explainer videos, demo videos, like SaaS companies love them, don't they? So I've actually only done like 3 or 4 for YouTube videos. But it was for like it's for like an electrician service. Actually, it wasn't SaaS at all. But just going back to what you were saying, just to kind of sum up that whole, okay, like, I'm a bit unsure of what to do and whether that kind of muddies the water by listing all of these services. I'm with you as well. Like, I win clients mainly through website copy. A couple of times it's happened that people have come to me because of my expertise within email automation, specifically within e-commerce, because that's something that I did a lot of as kind of a consultant for e-commerce companies before I started copywriting. But for the most part, like, I win people through website redesigns and that sort of thing. So long form sales pages, home pages, about us, services pages, the standard. I don't win very many people for blogging at all, because I don't try to, because typically the sort of clients that you win a lot of the time for blogging want the cheaper end of the market. There's the question of actual value versus perceived value there. And I feel like a lot of the clients that say things like, we need to SEO our site, which is like a big red flag right there. They're the people that come to you and they'll want to pay like $50 or $100 per blog post. And fine for some people, but if you're trying to live kind of a certain lifestyle, have a certain income, you're just not going to get that doing that. But whereas if you win a client and you're doing like a 12 or 13K funnel for them, you're just doing full funnel copy, they're more likely to have the budget to want to pay somebody who's going to give them a very, very, good quality blog post or white paper or ebook or something like that. Something that's not necessarily longer form, but it tends to be with that kind of those kind of value-based blogs for sure. So I love that about like what you put in your storefront and what you keep in the back, I guess.
Totally. Exactly. It helps a lot. It reduces a lot of anxiety when you understand that. It's like, I remember like when I first, like when somebody told me that and different words, I was like, oh, cause you can kind of get yourself all spinning in a freak out of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That obsession with that specialization and
how
there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype around what you're supposed to do and not do. And it's like, hey, if you're making 6 figures and you're only working, 35 hours a week, you're good. Don't worry about what other people are saying.
Yeah, that's it.
That's my thought anyway.
Well, like I'm not there yet, so I'm going to take your word on it.
Yeah, well, that's my thing. I'm like, hey, I got here, so I'm going to ignore people and do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I got here partly by ignoring people. Every step of the way, you have to kind of figure out, because there's what's the difference between what people are actually going to say versus this client is trying to hand you money.
Yeah, exactly. It's easier said than done to ignore that stuff as well. So one of the things that I've seen, I think, be the differentiator between kind of, it's not even about quality of copy. It's about like the strength of copywriters' businesses. The people that I kind of look up to in terms of like lifestyle, in terms of revenue goals, in terms of just kind of being out there in the industry and being well known, because that makes it easier to do all of the other things. The difference that I see, and I'd love you to weigh in on this, is how open they are to cold pitching. I think it's way more important than a lot of people like talk about. Going after people and being quite thoughtful about who you're going to work with, and then actively trying to make that happen, rather than just sitting back and just say, oh, okay, well, I'll work with this one, and then, okay, maybe hopefully I'll get some work from here next month and stuff like that. Do you have any experience or thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So I love that you bring that up, because I love cold email. And the funny thing is, cold email gets such a bad rap, but every big software company that you can think of does it. Like Drift is like a really well-known, SaaS company in the US. Well, they have like teams of employees whose job it is to send cold emails. So it's like, for us as solopreneurs to think like, oh, cold pitching is gross and I'm not going to do it and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's really very silly. And I think part of the misconception around it is that lack of quality, like you've said, and like that kind of lack of understanding of being strategic in who you're going for, because they think like, oh, you're just going to send a mass of emails and then people are going to flag you as spam, and then, something's going to catch fire and it's going to be all over, or it's like, no, actually inbound and outbound can work quite well together. So as an example, let's say that you want to work in a specific niche and you have a dream client that you want to go for. Now imagine if you had that logo on your website within this niche, and then other people that came to your website would be like, oh, I recognize that logo. I want to work with that person. So that's the inbound and the outbound, because if you can use outbound cold email to get, your top, 3 to 5, relatively well-known client logos, and you get those logos on your website, you get testimonials from those people. Then when somebody visits your website, they're going to fill out the contact form because they're going to be like, oh, this person has experience, or I recognize this person. And it doesn't always have to be like, globally well known. You can think about things within like a certain location. For example, one of my clients, StoryChief, they are located in Ghent, Belgium. And so I have gotten 2 other clients from Ghent, Belgium, because they know StoryChief. Mm-hmm. So somebody in New York City, they might not have heard of StoryChief yet, but StoryChief is a successful startup out of Ghent that serves, the American market. So other local startups look up to it as a company that's a small local startup that is serving the American market. Mm. So it's like, it doesn't have to necessarily be like this super, famous big company like Pepsi or Nike or something. Like you can get clients within like a certain, space. So another example for me is TravelPerk. Like because I worked with TravelPerk, that's out of Barcelona, I have other clients from Barcelona. And you can keep doing this in like kind of like a symbiotic cycle. So you could get, one client out of a certain well-known hub in your industry. You've got that on your website. You've got the testimonial. Then you do outbound marketing to other companies in that same city. And as soon as they see that testimonial from that company, they're going to be like, oh, so it could still be just outbound, where you're doing outbound within not just a specific niche, but even a specific location. And then it also is a lot less work because you are being very strategic. So whenever you go to a company that you're going to pitch with outbound, you want a relevant case study or portfolio sample that you can send them. And then you just keep building on that. And then at some point, you don't have to do it anymore if you don't want to, because, you just have built up enough, referrals and interest. But yeah, I don't think I know any like 6-figure service providers that didn't do like some level of email pitching at some stage, at least within like the B2B world. Like if they only serve like coaches and like solopreneurs and consultants, a lot of those people can sell and get to 6 figures on Facebook. But I think for like the B2B world, I think that cold emailing is it's just amazing, really.
Yeah, I think even within like coaches, consultants, masterminds, that sort of area, I think there's room for it. I know a couple of successful copywriters that are in that specific industry, and one of their big focuses is cold pitching. Nice. And I just want to kind of differentiate a little bit. I don't want to create some kind of false dichotomy because everything exists on a scale, but you often hear about like 2 different approaches for pitching. And I think the most popular one is like a volume kind of very much templated approach. So you create one template, you find a list of companies, you find the email address of those companies, and then it's just like email blast time, basically. You're just like, check, click, check, email, done. And on the other side, there's this hyper-personalized, bespoke approach where you will research the company, you will dig in, you will find out the right people to contact, you'll find out what their pain points as a company are at the moment, if they're growing, if their market has contracted, if there's something specific that's happened in the market, if there's a particular event that they're gearing up for, less so now, maybe a virtual event, I don't know. All of these things and you're trying to provide some value in terms of addressing that pain point, whatever it is. Like maybe they're too busy to, with this particular event to address something else. Or maybe you've seen that they've done a new landing page or they've released a blog on a particular topic, and you think, hey, if you're a blog writer, you might think, I'd love to expand on that topic and propose like this, and this to them. So between those two, where do you typically find yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm definitely more on the customization side, but I did figure out ways to make it feel custom without having to like fully customize it. So I'm going to explain this. Also, as a copywriter, I'm very lucky because I can look at the problems on somebody's website and pitch something specific to that. So what I do, as I've mentioned, the top two ways that I get clients and my biggest services are writing website copy and then writing blog posts, like SEO blog posts. And within the SaaS world, they pay good money for blog posts because search ads are so expensive. It's like $30 to click on a Google ad that says customer support software. So they really want to rank those blog posts. So they do pay good for those, which is definitely not true in other industries. So if let's say I'm doing some research, I'm doing some prospecting research, I search, computer, internet, software, whatever inside of LinkedIn with at least, 10 employees. I come up with companies, I check out their website. Then I see if they have like a confusing homepage where it's like, it's just not like conversion focused. It's not focused on results. The product isn't clear. Then I put them in, I'm going to pitch them website copy bucket. If their website looks great, and then I go check out their blog, and maybe their blog does not have a lot of like SEO focused posts, like it's product announcements and it's just case studies, but it's not like SEO focused content, then I put them in the bucket of I'm going to pitch them SEO posts. Mm-hmm. So then I have templates. One of them is like, I noticed like your website has great, design, but the copy isn't clear or results focused. So that is a template, and it sounds very custom because it's true to that person, but I didn't have to rewrite it for every website because I do that on the prospect research side of putting them in these buckets. So it's a lot faster. You could make as many buckets as you want. For me, I just do 2. And if they don't fit in either, then I just, don't pitch to them. But you could have, 4 or 5, depending on what service you do. It may be hard to find evidence of problems. But for most freelance services, it would be quite easy. Like if you do Instagram account management, you could easily find problems with their Instagram account, or if you run Facebook ads, you could check out their Facebook ads and the ad library, and maybe you won't know what's going on the back end with their targeting, but you might be able to say like, I noticed that, your ad creative doesn't include blah, 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 whatever, like kind of common problems. So the strategy with this is you have to find what are the common problems in your area. If you want to avoid the customization for every single template, then you have to think of like the most common problems in your service or your industry. And so the other thing that I do is I have my virtual assistant build the prospecting sheet. So then all I do is click through from the spreadsheet to the website and see what bucket I want to put it in. Then I just select in the drop down in the spreadsheet, this is website copy, this is blog content, and then she loads the whole rest of it. So that's actually the process that I have in my cold email course. So yeah, it just makes it a lot faster because once you get to a certain point, you want to keep doing cold email to, keep kind of attracting like better and better clients, but you definitely don't want to be doing it yourself, because you could easily spend a couple hours a day doing it. And so you'll quickly come to the point where you don't have that time.
Yeah, it can get quite time consuming, especially if you're going for the kind of bespoke or getting towards that kind of angle anyway, it definitely can. Yeah. Do you, in terms of sending the email out, do you have some sort of software that you would recommend people use?
Yeah, so I think that, reply.io and outreach.io are both really great options for sending cold email. You still always want to kind of watch your volume because you want to protect your domain and not get flagged as spam. So customizing your pitch with that bucket strategy does help because people see it as relevant to them. But you still want to kind of be careful of how many you're sending per day. So you can just do, 5 or 10 per day. But for us as freelancers, like that's all that it takes because you only need, a handful of clients a month or possibly 2 handfuls, depending on what you charge. So, 5 to maybe 10 or 15 emails per day. You don't want to do like the spray and pray method where you're sending like thousands of emails a month because that is going to, lower your chances of success and then also put you at risk of getting, flagged as spam. So a lot of the work comes with the research part of it, of finding the right companies. So having very specific criteria, whether that's employee headcount or even just the quality of their website, right? If you're like, okay, if their website looks like it's from 20 years ago, they might be crazy, so I don't want to work with them. Like, you know what I mean? You can have whatever criteria that you want, or, it's maybe a certain number of followers. If you do, social media management, figure out within your industry, what are the metrics that show some level of success and some level of profitability so that you're avoiding pitching to people that don't have money. So when you do all of those things, you have that criteria, then you're reducing the number of people that you're sending to, then you can get to that 5 to 15 a day number, but it's still really, high quality and you have a great chance of like actually working with those people.
Amazing. I think there was something that I heard the other day that really resonated with me that applies here. And it was like this thought that sometimes we get when we are looking at websites, we are analyzing people's email copy and things like that. And you think, actually, that copy is quite good. Like sometimes it happens, you come across companies and you're like, that's pretty good. And then the question to the person was like, well, what should I do if their copy's good? And the thing is, like, what was like a bit of a mindset shift for me is this understanding that if companies have good copy, they need more good copy. That's it. Like if they already do that, it shows that they value good copy, which means that they have budgets for copywriters. Like they're already doing good stuff. So propose more good stuff that's like tangential and kind of adds on. So if they've got good blog posts, propose them more good blog posts on, and you can use tools like BuzzSumo, for example, to find out which of their blogs did really well, which was shared multiple times. And then you can even use that stats and say, I've noticed that this blog you wrote was shared 2,000 times on these social platforms. I think it's because of this. I'd love to write you this, and this that is based on that around a similar topic. Or if they have really good landing pages and you notice that they've got a great landing page or sales page for service A and service B, and then you look and see if they've not got anything for service C yet because they haven't either prioritized it, put into the time, that's a really good indication that you can go, well, they do that and they do that. I wonder what, creating a new page for this particular service would be worth to them in terms of revenue.
Yeah, no, that's really smart. You definitely don't have to do it like problem-based. You can definitely like focus on, hey, I love like this page because it XYZ, and then go about it that way. Like what would really support getting this more traffic would be blah, blah, blah. Like, so that's a really good idea. And that can help you if you want to go for like more established companies, because you're not going to go to like, you know, $1 billion SaaS company and be like, your landing page sucks. And they're like, well, no, it doesn't, because it converts at 5% or something.
Yeah, because we test it rigorously.
Totally. It's a really good strategy if you do want to work with, you know, I think more established companies that aren't just small business owners that don't know what they're doing when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, but even just to expand that, even like small businesses that are experiencing a certain level of success, that applies for as well, because they might have pushed one service and got one service or one like sales funnel really, really tight. You know, they might have refined it, they might have got it really, really to a good place that they're happy with, but then, you know, they've got a launch in 6 months of their new products and they don't have any of those things, or they've got another service that has taken a back seat because of all the energy that they've been putting into this one. So I think between that strategy and the pain points, like I strongly recommend focusing on the pain points, just as we do when we're writing the copy for those clients themselves. The same applies for the cold email pitching, I think.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. Very cool. Then there's no reason not to pitch any company that you might find.
Yeah, exactly. So what does the next couple of years look like for you?
Well, the next couple of years looks like building up a new brand, which is called Pitch and Profit. The website is under construction. So that is my new brand that's going to be focused on digital PR, because that's just an area that I know that a lot of companies are just not doing everything that they can do. And what really excites me about digital PR is how it corresponds with content marketing. So like I said, with the SaaS world, blog posts are so important because search ads are just crazy expensive and very competitive. Of course, these companies are still doing, you know, Google and Bing ads, but they want to balance that out with organic rankings. And so the quality of the content matters. And then what also matters is the amount of, you know, backlinks to that post and to the website as a whole. So a lot of companies know how important this is, and they'll do some things to, you know, get more backlinks and digital publicity, but they're really not doing enough. And so that's kind of a problem that I'm looking to solve, particularly with the SaaS world. So Pitch and Profit is going to be a blog and then also a training program about how to work as a team to get digital publicity and then also get backlinks to, you know, important pages and posts. Mm-hmm. So one way to do that is, of course, by being a guest on podcasts, which I'm doing now. hey, because, you know, you do get a link to your website from, you know, most episode pages. That's pretty standard. So that's just one of the strategies that I want to talk about in Pitch and Profit. And the main focus of it is how to outsource this work internally in your team. So you don't have to do it alone as an entrepreneur, and you don't have to hire an agency. You can hire virtual assistants to pitch podcasts and guest posts for you. And it's been a big win for me as a freelancer, because I rank in Google search for SaaS copywriter. And if I had just done the website optimization without doing any digital PR, there's no way I would rank for that key phrase.
No, it's like exactly. I can imagine it's fairly competitive. And it's very interesting for me on a personal level, because I hired a VA on Monday. And the first thing that I'm having them do is work with me, like a collaborative process to put together a pitching strategy, basically, because part of the issue I found is that because I've got so many other things going on, I've got multiple businesses, I'm trying to get this podcast off the ground and grow that. and, spend some time with my wife as well, and
Yeah.
like not go insane. It's very difficult, like to have the energy and the motivation. I think I could find the time, but to have the energy and the motivation on top of everything else for me is tough to carve out even like an hour a day on a regular basis just to do pitching. Like that's quite tough for me with my current time restraints. So the ability to kind of outsource that to a VA, to know that there's constantly progress being made in the background, even if you're not necessarily the one doing pitching, I think is just incredibly valuable, not just from a business level, but from that kind of reassurance, that confidence that you get that something is happening.
Yes, exactly. That it's just running. And that's what I've done, like with the cold email. I was probably investing maybe like $400 a month in that, because she was also doing other things for me. But then just to know, like, I'm always having these pitches getting sent out. And so for me, I'm just getting replies, right? It's like I do that thing where I look at the website, stick it in the buckets. And then after that, I just look at my email and now I'm getting the replies, right? So now I'm taking that on with the digital PR work, because previously I had done that all by myself. So same thing, I'm just logging into my email and I'm getting a reply from somebody that's like, yes, we want this guest post. Can you send it by this day? Or yes, we want to have you on our podcast. So it's pretty awesome when you do set up that system and, train your VA very carefully on exactly the kind of target outlets that you want and what are the goals. Because if it's for publicity versus, backlink SEO, that kind of changes it, right? It changes what kind of outlets you'll be targeting. But yeah, at this point, it's just like now I'm, replying to those incoming responses. So that's really awesome. And I think for right now, I'm really just doing $200 a month on this with my VA. So Pitch and Profit is designed for people that want to spend between, $200 and maybe $1,200 on different, VAs and assistants. So for me, I'm just having the VA do the research and the pitching, but Pitch and Profit also goes over how to work with like writers, because I'm a writer, so I'm just going to write it myself. But at some point, I may have like ghostwriters write guest posts for me, and I've done that a lot for clients. So yeah, I've done a lot of digital PR for clients as well, and it's really powerful because it's like a quality over quantity thing, where you're not like, let me put, one blog post out a week. Like, it's more like, let me focus on the blog post that's really got a chance of ranking and is going to increase my revenue if and when it ranks, and let me drive, backlinks and traffic to it. So it's really that like quality over quantity approach too.
Fantastic. And is that what you're planning to cover in the course? Is that mainly focused on the processes, or do you also include a kind of an understanding about how to create the topics that are really going to kind of capture people's attention as well?
It's mostly on the like promotion process for your content and your pages. I think at some point, depending on like interest and what customers say, I might include kind of like a bonus module on how to kind of get the upfront work done. But my initial goal is to launch this within SaaS companies. And so most of them are already doing SEO content. They're not doing well enough this side of it, so I'm kind of like solving that problem with it. So yeah, I'm busy creating the course, modules and materials right now. So I feel you on like finding time for stuff. And that's kind of, as you go along, you see more opportunities of how to like grow your revenue, as a freelancer and a solopreneur. And so that's why like you've really got to get these things off your plate. And so I think for most freelancers, pitching clients and then pitching, publicity outlets, I think it's a great place to start with outsourcing. I found it much more successful than like outsourcing like social media content. like for a while I had my VA helping me with Instagram, and then I got a lead for like a bong website.
Fantastic.
Because I'm like, you're just collecting like whatever. I'm like, oh, Instagram is not helping me get quality leads. Maybe other people have it figured out depending on their niche. But for me, within, the SaaS world, cold pitching, clients and publicity it makes me actually be able to get ROI from hiring a VA.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people have VAs, but I don't know, you know what I mean? A lot of people are not really getting the profit from it,
Yeah. I mean, when I was hiring my VA, I made sure that they had a very specific skill set. That makes them sound like Liam Neeson in Taken now, doesn't it? But that's not really what I meant. But I kind of want my VA to pay for themselves. And I feel like, don't get me wrong, they're going to be helping me with uploading content to the website and that sort of kind of admin based things as well. But I also want them to be working on stuff that can basically pay their own salary in terms of winning new business or helping me kind of expand the business that I already have. It's not going to be the focus for everyone, of course, but that's kind of mine. Well, I think that's kind of so many tips that we've covered there, like the whole cold pitching thing. I can't believe that we managed to talk about niching and not niching as well, because normally you could do a whole episode on those. Right. But I think the most important thing for me is for people to understand that there's no one right way. A lot of this is about feeling what you're comfortable with, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and just trying to kind of take what people like myself and Dayana say with a pinch of salt. I could try something that Dayana's doing and absolutely fall on my face, and vice versa. And you guys might have great success with it, or you might struggle. So yeah, I think just go out there and try lots of different things. Give things a good effort when you do try them. Don't give up on them, even before you start. And I think that's a great message. So where can people find out more about you, Dayana?
Yeah, so for now, you can go to DayanaMayfield.com, and I have some resources if anybody's interested in, the SaaS world and all that. So you can go to my blog, DayanaMayfield.com/blog, and then on the right-hand side, there's the B2B SaaS copywriting templates, and then the customer research questions. Those can really, really help if you are looking to write within, the SaaS world. And pitchandprofit.com is totally under construction. So if you go there right now, I don't know what you'll find. But if you happen to be listening to this after January in 2021, then it should be live. So thank you so much for having me, Nelson. This was really great. And I love sharing all this stuff because, it's a tough road. It's a tough road. So we got to stick together.
For sure. And from a personal perspective, I found it super valuable. So I'm sure other people will as well. And just for reference for all our listeners, all of those links will be on my site, in the transcripts, and anywhere that you're kind of listening to your podcast. So Dayana, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
And that's it for today. You've been listening to the Working From Home podcast with me, Nelson Jordan. We've been talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly side of remote work. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you've enjoyed the time you've spent with us today. If you'd like to discuss the podcast, you want to make a new friend, or you're interested in working with me on a copywriting or digital marketing project, then visit nelson-jordan.com. That's nelson-jordan.com, where you can also sign up to my newsletter to hear about this podcast and other exciting projects. Until next week, goodbye.